Welcome to another exciting episode of the Bud Rebel Show, a podcast like no other. Not only do we have strange facts, we call them Snapple facts, but we also have ways to make money in these difficult times. We have one of or more of my wild ideas. I have things that I quote hate, which is always fun to do. And we also talk about leadership. We also have a great conclusion at the end. Hopefully we'll get there. And we're gonna have a great time in between. So my fabulous guest is going to be Ashli. Ashli, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bud. Thanks so much for having me.
It's really great. For the start, I heard that you worked with an individual that has always been very funny in my book, Larry Davis.
Yes, Larry David.
So Larry, yeah, Larry, yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, and I mean, well, it goes back to the old Seinfeld days when I think about him. And you worked on that. Is he as funny in real life as he appears to be?
Super funny. Like you can't even keep a straight face on set. Hilarious.
So he's like the director of the show too, or is he just the actor type of that show itself?
So he's one of the producers, executive producers on the show. So he's, in front of the camera, but in control of a lot behind the camera as well.
It's interesting because they're like, even when I'm in a business that I'm in and I'm trying to balance being a business, leader, serious, but you're working, so you want to have some fun. So but you don't want anybody to, to go too far. So with Larry, I can't imagine Larry like getting so strict. I know, that he's like,
Oh
but
no, he wasn't strict at all. He was just a ball of fun.
so let's get a background about your acting career, how you got all started and what, highlights and stuff like that. Let me hear about it. When you start when you were young lady, how young did you start when you got into the business?
I was 11. I was doing theater. So I started out doing theater. I did this play called The Miser when I was 11 years old. And I'm from Louisiana, so there isn't much of an industry, especially that was happening there. So everything was theater. And then I went to LSU for college, and I was double majoring in biology and theater. But they weren't shooting much out there. And I noticed like a lot of the things that they would shoot, like in New Orleans, an hour away from my university, they would fly the leads in and then cast extras and maybe co-stars around that. So I was like, they're flying these leads from LA. What training is out there in LA? So in 2014 I left from Louisiana and came to California, trained out here at the Baron Brown studio. It's a Meisner studio in Santa Monica, and since 2017, yeah, we've been kicking butt and taking some names.
So you do this. How does your family feel about you going in the early days? And your family feel about you becoming an actress? Like,
I think they've always been supportive. For my mom, all my siblings, like grandma, they've always been supportive. They didn't know I was going to pursue it this professionally though, because again, my background is theater, so I wasn't necessarily trying to get into TV and film. I didn't pivot until I came out here in 2014.
and the whole acting between theater and acting on TV is a whole different way to do it. Did you were able to change so easily between the two formats, you might say?
Honestly, I feel like everyone has a different experience, but for me, I'd say I'm glad to have had the theater background. I feel like inhibiting yourself is easier than like if you've only started, film and TV and then trying to go into theater. I feel like it's a bigger transition to get to be that big and
Mhm.
occupy that much space versus like you're already big and just bring it down and make it natural.
It seemed like the way you described it, there weren't any like tough roads. You just jumped in and got into the thing. But was it any things that little bounces along the way? Were there any times when you thought it was maybe you're giving yourself some amount of time to make it and things weren't working out, or it just worked out
Well, I
basically?
didn't give myself like any certain period of time. But when I came out here, the first 2 years, like I didn't audition or anything. I wasn't looking for an agent because that studio is the Baron Brown studio. The owner of the studio, Joanne Barron, she trained directly under Sandy Meisner. So he's very strict about the whole, when you're in this conservatory, you're not auditioning. You're only doing the training. So for those first 2 years, I couldn't really gauge where I really fit into the industry because I was just exclusively training. But then when I got out of it, did the master class where my manager found me, um, it was really clear that, oh, okay, I'm competitive having done this work.
Because it's interesting, like people are acting. I always say this interesting how there's young kids that come out like 5 years old and they're in movies and they didn't take any classes. And like someone like you is trained professional. And it's interesting how some people like have it. And there are people I'm sure that in your class that went through all the classes and even they did all that stuff, but they didn't have it. So I think there's a certain amount of naturalness to it.
Mm.
There's also a certain amount of training, I guess. What do you think you gained from the training that you wouldn't get naturally?
Definitely foundation and just understanding technique and just cerebrally understanding the work, I guess, because there are a lot of things out there that you do that are written for pretty much anyone. I hate to say it, but it's like there's certain formulas where people, just create things to get a return on investment, and those types of projects, which I've even done a couple of those. It's no shade, but it's like you don't have to be a super talented actor to play that role. It can kind of be interchangeable, whoever books the roles, because it's, again, just quick return on investment type of project. However, having that training, you can audition for things that aren't quick turnover projects, where they're really looking for people who understand the work, can really bring their essence to this character, and understand the writer as well. Like, you can understand this, because there's certain things that you do. Like, I've gone to things sometimes, they're like, where did you train, or where did this? So it's like, okay, certain executive, they can understand, they'll notice the difference. So like your natural talent is good, I think, more so for things that are just based off of yourself, where it's just your personality, and like you're kind of being booked for your personality, maybe comedy, or something like that. But when you get into these dramas, that training really matters. And even the people who have like natural talents, it's like, you've still got to get the fundamentals down.
So which type of acting would you say you go with when you do like a role? Do you like go back in your life story and try to make it part of the character? Or do you like, let's say you were playing Abraham Lincoln's wife. Do you try to
Uh-huh.
become Abraham Lincoln's wife? Which format do you see? Or do you do a combination? How would you say that works with you?
So I mostly in that situation would try to be Abraham Lincoln's wife, but not as, she was, but like with what I'm bringing to it. But I usually try not to go into my life story, because there's something about Meisner, that's my preferred technique, but it's like they don't like ripping off the Band-Aid. So it's like, if you have to get into something depressive, you don't want to keep imagining like your parent in the hospital, or like your sibling or something, because then eventually you'll desensitize yourself from that, and then you won't be able to go to that deep place, because you've imagined your parent in the hospital so many times. It doesn't make you choke up anymore. So they really help you get connected to imaginative circumstances to bring out that emotion or whatever you need for the scene.
When you're playing a role, an actress, I mean, how much time do you take studying that actress, that role? Let's say you were playing someone, let's say, on drugs. Would you
Uh-huh.
go to like a drug clinic? What would you do to get ready for that role?
Honestly, everything is so fast, especially with network TV. You almost have no time to really prepare, unless it's a feature film. Like, for feature films, you'll know enough in advance that you can do some work. I found that with theater, I've had all of that time. Like, there was one time I was playing this gangster, because we were doing Set It Off, but in theater, and I was playing Cleo, who ends up robbing a bank. Just, criminal. She ends up robbing a bank. It gets crazy. So I spent a lot of time like just walking around in Santa Monica with that actual wardrobe. And a funny story happened, because I jaywalked and actually got pulled over by cops in those clothes. And then I had my prop gun in my purse. So I
Oh
was
my gosh,
freaking
okay.
out. I'm like, please don't check my this. Like, I hope they don't see anything, because like this is a fake gun. But yeah, I was fully in it, just walking around Santa Monica with like the pants sagging. I had the cornrows, I had the wife beater, everything. But with film and TV, mostly TV, everything's so fast. You honestly don't get that time to prep.
Right. And when you're doing a theater show, when I watch a show, everything seems so perfect. Are there
Mm-hmm.
mistakes made that we don't notice in the audience and people just have to skip over it? Like, does ever have
In
anything
TV?
happen? What's that?
In TV?
No, on the theater. When you're watching a show live, everything's so right for the audience.
Uh-huh.
Are there other mistakes that we don't notice that you got, like you skip
Oh
over?
yeah, there are a lot of mistakes, especially if it's a musical. Someone's messing up choreography, but everyone's playing it off and just making it seem like it's a part of the thing.
So
Which,
funny. And how about lines, memorizing lines? Have you had any difficulty with that? And what technique do you do to help you with it? I don't know if you ever do like a monologue, like a long monologue. How do you compensate for that time to memorize lines?
so good question. So one of the things I do, because theater is my background, I think that helped a lot. So I kind of have an elephant's memory with lines. Like the other day I had an audition, and one of the scenes was almost just complete monologue for almost 2 pages for the character. And after a certain amount of times of reading it, it's like, oh, I've got it. Just because like with certain technique things, you know which cues kind of bring you to that line. Or if you connect to the story, it'll pretty much take you to the line if you really know what's happening in the scene. But when I need to memorize things on a whim, I just record my like the other person's lines and then I just say them with myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You get it, but do they allow these directors, they allow you to improvise, or do you find that you have to be like exact to the point?
Depends. So
Mm.
I'll be word perfect. I'll come on set and I'll be word perfect. But usually they'll say, okay, do what you want, or if you want to improvise this particular scene, go ahead.
And also when you're doing a scene with somebody and they aren't up to the role, have you had that situation where you had to
Yeah,
like
I've had that situation. You just stay professional. You just keep like there are certain times I can give them cues to get to their lines because I know again with that background in doing theater at 11, I had the memorization skills super easy. But there are some people who didn't have that, so it's like I'll throw a cue or maybe say something else, add an additional line that'll bring them back to where they fell off. And it gets interesting, but I think with editing it gets easy because the director told me one time that actually in my scene, because I had a scene partner who just couldn't get the lines, but he's like, it worked out because they were able to do that person's lines in ADR later, and because I was word perfect, they just kept most of the scene on me and played the overlap, the audio from the other person's lines, and it worked out.
a lot of little tricks in the trade, I guess there. Now
So
you don't know act, you're also an actress, but you also, I think, write, you do other stuff with that as well, right?
yes, I'm a screenwriter and producer. So I just produced a short 2 weeks ago. It was early March that I'm super excited about.
And what are you going to do with that? You just that show you put it out in the film festivals and try to get your name out and stuff like
Well,
that?
we actually have to premiere it at one specific film festival this fall because we got a fellowship. So we got a grant to do the film because
Oh, wow.
the writer won a grant. So we got the funding to shoot it, which was awesome. And yeah, it premieres this fall. And I got to be a mom to like this very young child. Working with child actors is so funny. It's so hilarious, but it's super inspiring.
Hmm. So also when you're doing these in between the roles that you have in the acting, I think there's a lot of downtime in
Oh
the
yeah,
right. So what do you do in your downtime?
auditioning. So
So did
it
you,
sounds weird, but I audition a lot, so you don't always feel the amount of downtime that you have. Like you may have nothing going on for like 3 months, but if you're auditioning consistently, you didn't get a break.
so your auditions now they're done there on video basically. They're not at the set, they're not at the locations as much, right?
Yeah, just commercial auditions are sometimes in person, but every theatrical, like TV film, I'm self-taping them myself.
And so did you start out where you used to go to the set and locations like that, or did it always go to
I'd
the
say half and half. Like when I started auditioning for real, like around 2017, I'd say half were in person, and all the callbacks were in person. All callbacks at least were in person, and the other half self tape. But then since I would say the year before the pandemic, 2019, every audition I was getting was self tape.
which do you like better?
Huh. It's weird. I like the flexibility of self taping, but then when you're auditioning consistently, it's not as fun because you have to constantly get a reader. So it kind of takes a lot of the joy out of what, not only the joy out of what you're doing, but it makes it like so impossible. So I do my self tapes with the studio. So I pay a monthly subscription and I just go shoot all my self tapes there as they come in. But I have some friends where it's like they're calling me almost every day. They're like, hey, can you come and tape? And if I can't make it, they can't find somebody to come and read. They just miss out on an opportunity. So in those instances, they would have preferred to, go in person. But I think it's nice. You can control everything, but I guess it's more of a risk to production because what if someone can do a perfect self tape, but when you actually show up in the thing with actions and dialogue and an actual person across from you and maybe stunts happening, maybe that person might freeze.
So who was the most interesting celebrity you met?
I've ever met. Who's been the most interesting celebrity? I met a lot.
Should we take a commercial break and you can think about that before we come back to that?
Commercial break, yes.
All right, we're gonna come back and we're also gonna have some strange facts with our friend Ashli.
Ooh.
And we are back with Ashley. Ashley, we asked you an interesting question. Who is the most interesting star that you met? Have you been able to think of that since the commercial break?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
So I believe it would be Nathan Fillion.
Okay. And what was interesting about him?
Okay, he was my co-star on The Rookie. You know, he's the lead of The Rookie, and I was familiar with his work far before now. But he was so kind when we got to set, and then he kept knitting these little, like, I don't know if you remember, we used to knit like keychains back in the day where you just take some like plastics and you just fold them over until you have this cute little keychain, um, little lucky, I don't know what to call them, but it's like you just put them on your keychain and they're so colorful. And he was just making those and it threw me off. And I wonder why he was doing that. So it turned out he got COVID, which shut the set down for a little
Oh my
while.
goodness.
And then while he had COVID, he needed something to do. So he learned how to make them. And then he gave me one. He gifted me one. I was like, wow, he's super nice. But it was interesting because I'm just like every day on set, he's just sitting there knitting.
Like a little old lady.
Right. I'm like, what is going on? Grandma?
And what do you do during down like when you're doing the films, if you're doing films, you're waiting a long period of time. So what are you doing during that downtime of waiting?
When I'm not shooting anything?
When you're in between the shoot, like it's like they got to set the lights up, the cameras. What do you normally do?
Oh, I usually take a nap.
Is
I'm in
that
my trailer, I'm probably sleeping.
Oh, if you have a nap. Oh, that's good. Okay, that's good. Okay. So I have some business ideas I have that I always like to bring up to people because there's so many ideas in my head, I never get to do them all. I don't know if I did this one. I hope not. But it's called Free This Weekend. And it would be an app that you'd put out when you just had nothing to do this weekend. You want to go bowling, but you don't want to go by yourself. So free this weekend, I'm going bowling. Anybody wants to join me. I want to go to the movies. Anybody wants to join me. What do you think of that idea?
Actually really like that because I do a lot of things by myself just because my friends are never free or somebody's shooting something or work. So it's like I just go by myself. But I guess if there was an app like that, I could be like, hey, we can go together.
Do you go to the movies by yourself and shows?
I do.
You do. You
I
go
go
to
to
shows
like,
by yourself?
huh?
You go to show by yourself. Or
To a show.
would you go to a show by yourself?
Absolutely.
You know, that's really good. That's a lot of self-confidence. I think it's so silly when I think about going to that you can't go to a movie by yourself because you're in the movie theater and you're not supposed to be talking anyway. So I don't know what the thing is, why people have that thing about going to movies by themselves. So,
Right.
and I mean, I go to the gym by myself. I'll eat in a restaurant by myself. I might go to the movie by myself. I haven't gone to a show by myself. It's
Uh-huh.
a nice way to meet people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like after the show, you can talk about it. And if you know, you get to do what you want to do. I guess that's a nice feature. When you want to do, you just do it. And that's not
Yeah.
worry about what anybody else wants to do, you know?
Exactly. I solo travel all the time for that. I can't wait for like other people's schedules. So I just go.
You know, I just saw a show, by the way, the one show is called Back to the Future. And
Uh-huh.
it was really refreshing. It was just fun. There's nothing, there was just, there wasn't any really great songs. I don't know if there were any that great dance numbers. It was just a fun show, silly like show, and it's just like a nice 80s comeback show, and unbelievable set designs. Unbelievable. They had this car in the air flying. I don't know how they did it. They did some amazing stuff. It was good because there's so many shows that might want you to lean this way or that way, and then it just gets to be boring. I don't like to see movies that do that. I don't like to. I just want to come out. I think viewers want to be entertained. You know,
Yeah.
they spend all that time, they work so hard, they don't want to be preached to. As long as they don't want to see that type of show, they want to see a show that's funny, whatever, has them thinking at the end. But you know, that's what Back to the Future was just fun. Just a little side note there.
Uh,
Okay, I also have something called my hate, things that I hate. I never want to talk about what they like, but I hate Sour Patch candies. I hate anything that's sour. I don't like
oh,
sour. So,
hours.
you like sour?
It's so good.
Oh, I mean, I can have a sour pickle, maybe. But I don't get into sour. So it's just harsh. And I
So you
like
don't
bitter.
like warheads?
What?
You don't like
No, I know. I'm like itchy just thinking about it. It's like I don't know. It's the same thing when you're younger, and then people have the chalkboard and they used to scratch the chalkboard. I feel like
Oh, I hate
I feel like it's the same. I feel it's the same feeling in my mouth when you have a Sour Patch candy. You
that.
know,
Mhm.
and my son likes hot. Hot sauce is not bad, but sour, I never got into that. I don't know what the big thing with that is. Okay, we also talk about our show, what we need in our leaders. And I have another one that's which is something with you too. I think a leader has to be a little bit funny. So it has to be a little bit humorous. I take
Um,
themselves so seriously. They can make people laugh once in a while. Matter of fact, I heard you're a little bit of a stand-up comedian.
Actually, I have done some stand up.
But you're sitting down now. Now, we're gonna do this. I don't know if this I'll put you on the spot, but you have a little joke you want to tell us?
Oh, I have an original dad joke.
But I know you don't have any gags here, do you? In front of you?
I don't have anything out in front of me.
So how can you do a gag joke? You said you have a gag joke.
I said I have a dad joke.
Oh, dad joke. Oh yeah, good. Okay,
Yeah,
dad joke. Okay,
original. It's pretty corny, but forgive me.
that's good. I'm
Yeah.
a dad. There we go.
You call a chicken that can't lay eggs?
What do you call a chicken that you can't lay eggs?
Cockadoodle dad.
That's cute. That's cute. My daughter would hate that. That's great. So, and you're now on what productions are you now? What are you involved in right at this moment?
So the latest thing, I'm a lead in a movie on Lifetime called The Beach House Murders. It premiered last month, but it's still playing now. So that's the most recent thing. And I've been shooting on a new show that I can't talk about just yet.
Oh my gosh. Lifetime. Lifetime is like I don't want to sound sexist, but it really is like the woman's channel. I mean, it's like, and it's always like some dramatic. So this is what tell me about this movie a bit about it.
So
I might watch this show because just because you're on it, I'm gonna break my rule, watch Lifetime. Go ahead.
thank you so much. Um, the movie's about myself and a client. So I have a publishing company. I run this very successful publishing company, and there's this novelist who's become my friend who wants to stay at my summer house for a little while, just for a breather. And then crazy things happen at the summer house, and people die. Hence the name Beach House Murders. It's very dramatic.
Are you the murderer?
You got to watch.
Is
Can't spoil.
there any role that you wouldn't take?
Yes.
And what kind of roles would that be?
There have been roles that we've passed on and auditions we passed on because there were some that there was no compromise on the nudity.
Okay.
And it was unnecessary. It wasn't like, oh, it's something that moves anything forward or moves anything along. It was just to say so. And not necessarily like lead role or prominent role either. So then I was like, yeah, there's no need for all of that.
Anything else that would make you not want to take a role?
The writing, because that just tells you about so much. When you get a script and you see the writing, I mean, it doesn't always mean it's going to be bad, but then it's just like,
Because I remember seeing a movie, I think it was called The Woodsman or whatever. It was about a person that was abused children, and they're trying to like make it a good portrayal of like of that. And I just like, I don't know. It irked me that I didn't want to watch the movie altogether, but it was like almost trying to sensitive to a what do you call those people? Perverts, I guess, but little kids. And I was like, would I have an actor? Would I would take a role like that? I mean, yes, you're trying to think, but it's like there's certain people, I guess, would you want to play, you know? I don't know. And would it damage you as an actress or an actor to play certain roles that would just quote stereotyping certain things? That's an interesting. I know.
Unless it's done very like brilliantly and tastefully, because I think with Dahmer, which is it was a big one in like the past couple of years, everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's such a sick guy, like how could you play this thing? But then based on the portrayal that he did, it's like you don't look at him in a skewed light just because
that is interesting.
So brilliantly done.
That is interesting because I did watch a little Dahmer too, and I didn't even think about that. I guess it's it's interesting because you do the Batman movie and everyone wants to play the Joker,
Yeah.
and the Joker is really, when you think about it, is really a pretty evil man, even though they do such a good job portraying his the whole character where he comes from, that you feel like empathy to it. It's really interesting. We also had little political issues, and one of the issues that's come up a lot is transportation and the needs about whether we should be using these green cars or gas cars or what we should do. I heard a very interesting thing today. I thought it was just interesting because it was this idea of like more green cars and the price of cars, and what it does sometimes because of the cost of it is it makes it much more expensive for the people, and they buy more used cars. And when they buy more used cars, they're actually producing more gas because they can't afford it. And not only, oh, no problem.
All right.
And not only that, but then I have an electric car, but where they get the batteries from is in these places like Congo, and there's these poor little kids that are pulling up this stuff and it's polluting place in Africa while we're driving nice cars. It's like, I don't know. You just got to think. Sometimes you got to think about the whole consequences. Not that it's like this little simplistic thing. Oh, get electric cars, but what it actually is doing and how it's really helping or not helping. So you have to think. I think that's a guy, someone who has a long-term picture rather than a short-term picture of it. Also is helpful.
Absolutely. And we've been seeing so much of that footage in the Congo where it's like, okay, to what cost, do we like, how do we regulate this in a way that one makes it fair? Because, people are being paid practically nothing. And then it's literally child slavery. It's crazy.
I mean, like Haiti, I was in a part of Haiti recently, and part of the thing they said they we pay a little bit more for gas. Yeah, it's terrible, but the people in Haiti, they can't afford it to eat it. And then you raise gas prices. It's like that's all they have, and they start burning dung and they start burning to survive. And you got to sometimes think about other people how this is happening. You can't just think about other countries like that, and it's horrible. So I think we think more about that as well.
Absolutely.
I was also going to mention money-making tips because those are always fun to talk about. And one of the things I thought about, someone who helped me with talking about is I know a loved one that's suffering from mental health. And it's also a good thing to do. I hate to say it, but investing in mental health, investing in facilities that maybe help people out, investing in new medicines that come out. And at the same time, you're making money, hopefully, but at the same time, you're doing something that's good. And maybe that's another way to make this world a little better at the same time. It's always good to invest in something you believe in and at the same time help out, So
100%.
can you tell anybody, because we always want to give people a little hope, people going through tough times, about anything that you had to overcome in your personal life and how you were able to do that?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I'll use acting because people talk about, the rejection all the time, but I think it applies to anything in life that's, not going in your direction or whatever no that you're getting. I always go back to this too shall pass. And I always tell myself that anytime I'm going through a tribulation, I kind of reframe it and I say, okay, what if this was the only hurdle that I had to everything that I wanted? Like anything that means fulfillment to me was like right on the other side of this hurdle. And the second I imagine that, whatever the tribulation is, feels so much smaller. It's like, oh, this is all that it takes, for that happiness on the other side or for whatever's on the other side that you want. It's a mind trick that kind of makes you feel like, you'll be okay and that it's not as bad as you think.
And were there roles that you really thought you really had it and it just you never did?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. So many times. So many times. There was one, a big one. I auditioned for Batwoman and I got the audition on my birthday for the CW
Oh, wow.
Heroes. It was like, I just felt like I had it in the bag. And then because I got it on my birthday, I'm like, oh, this is destiny. Didn't get it. And then Woman King, oh my God, dream role, Viola Davis's daughter, Naui. When I auditioned for that, I was just like, this is in. Then I did my tape, we sent it in. I'm like, oh yes, that one's going straight to producers. We're gonna get it. We didn't get that one. So I mean, this industry is all about that because there's so many contributing factors to who gets a role, and you literally never know what's going on. So all you can do is put your best work forward and set it and forget it.
Right. I was also going to ask you about what was the most difficult role you ever had to play?
This is gonna sound so funny, but I would say Curb Your Enthusiasm. That one, because it's such a different world when it's improv, because I love taking text and I love taking dialogue, and that's where most of my training is. And of
Wait a
course,
minute, that shows improv.
yeah, that is fully improv. You get the scenario and you know where it's going, but everything's improv. And they're throwing so many wild things at once. So it's like you're thinking, oh, should you say something here? You can't be too clever. You shouldn't be too funny or try to be funny because then it's not going to come off as funny. So even though that show seems like it's more relaxed because it's improv, that was actually more challenging for me.
Wow. I mean, they do like it if it's improv and they do cuts. So he doesn't do the same thing twice. I guess they have to like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting.
It's so interesting.
They give you the role that you're going to be. They say you're going to be. What was your character in the show?
Mary Ferguson. I'm JB's girlfriend.
So they like telling you to be a strong woman or a weak woman or that type of thing, and you have to
Well, they tell you what's happening. Oh, they're coming over to your house to eat, and you guys are just gonna dine. And then the conversation and the context of the conversation, I'm finding out in real time, and it's hilarious.
And you're allowed to laugh, I guess, unless you're not thinking it's.
Oh, you can't laugh. So I'm like, I wait till cut, and then we're all dying because everything is just so funny.
He just goes, I didn't even know that. That's great. I love improv. I should be on that show. Improv is the fun. I love that. I mean, I hate lines. Lines drive me crazy. And I just like to, if you watch my show, the Bud Rebel show, I do most of the stuff is improv. I just find it so much more natural than, but then the problem with acting sometimes, not only that you have to do, I don't know how many times you've done the same scene over and over again. But when you do that, let's say your hand was here. At the end, let's go here. And then this time you felt like go this. No, now the whole thing is different, And that, to me, is the biggest problem with that, is that it's becomes fake almost. I don't know how many times you've done the same scene over. What's the most you've ever done a scene over?
Ooh. We've had to do a scene a few times. A lot of times it was mostly because people were struggling, with their lines. And because of that, they're like, oh yeah, we have to get that right for the continuity. But I mean, I like it because I feel like that's what I'm trained for. So like shooting the Rookie, when I shot the Rookie, and there's a lot going on with Rookie. There's shooting, we got automatic rifles going, there's explosions. So there's so many marks you have to land on. And then I had this scene where I'm breaking out of the hospital, and it's like, I had to look at a specific little part of the blinds, then move. There's so much blocking that you have to do like between the acting. And I loved it because I'm like, yes, this is what I'm trained for, to do all this at once. But I could see how it could seem crazy or mechanical because it's like you have 10 marks and then you have to do that on top of staying connected to what's happening in the scene. I mean, I love it, but I could see why it could drive some people crazy.
So what's the longest time you've been on a set for like a show?
Ooh. Probably about 15 hours.
15 hours straight.
Yeah.
Wow. And I guess you took a few naps in between that.
Oh yeah, I took some naps.
And the food was okay.
Oh, the food was great. Great catering on that set.
Is I don't know, they're gonna get us too much trouble, but were there any actors that are really arrogant that you could tell us about that really you had difficulty working with? They have attitude?
I could say, but I've had an interesting experience with people acting arrogant for sure, not really wanting to communicate or acknowledge people who are of a lower billing. Like, if you're co-star or guest star, yeah, that's happened once before. Especially the director's like praising you and they're the ones who aren't, like dropping lines and missing stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting thing when you do acting in front of a show, in front of like Broadway or whatever, and the crowd cheers and you feel it, and you're there playing in front of them. And sometimes when you're doing not the big movies, but the smaller sets, you never know who's watching it. So you never know whether you're really capturing somebody. So if you're to choose between the two, which one would you choose? In terms of the feeling?
The feeling, theater, live theater for sure. I love performing. It could be like a million people. I love it, love it, love it.
And if it was the question about the theater though, is that, so why did you do, if you can, so would you go back to the theater then? Are you interested in going back that way or?
I would actually. So every now and then I audition out here for live theater. But then something comes up where it may be a conflict, or my manager may say, hey, this is pilot season, so we don't want to have you wrapped up in a play when, this is a prime time to be out and auditioning. But I feel like I would, but of course, this isn't necessarily a theater town. Then financially as well, like existing in Los Angeles is crazy in itself. Like the rent is nuts. Every time I pay my rent, I get a notification in my email by Mint, like the budget app, that says, they think someone scammed me. They're like, large transaction alert. Was this you? Rent is so ridiculous. My bank thinks it's fraud. So theater, doing only live theater, just you wouldn't be able to survive here.
And as an actress, you have your manager. What kind of people work with you?
So I have a manager. She's the first one who discovered me at the masterclass from my studio.
What does the manager do exactly?
So the manager They could be so many things. Like sometimes your manager could be like your best friend. This person submitting you like an agent. They're kind of like scouting out the trajectory of where you want to go. An agent is more so like the machine. They're sending you the roles, and they're not really developing you. The managers usually work on developing you, like whether it's your brand, whether it's your look, making sure that you're going out for the right types. Agents usually don't have the time for that.
And then what else can you, what other people can you get behind you?
Sure, you can get a publicist. So that's a person, setting up different interviews like that we're having right now, different interviews, red carpets, press releases, and things like that. And then now, especially with social media, people have social media managers. So those are people setting up like different collaborations with brands, especially you have a lot of actors who are also influencers. So those people set those collaborations up.
So
And
you have like four people. You have like
yeah,
four people you have working on you just to see you become a success, I guess.
yeah, before you even have a stylist or makeup artist, because and then it gets really expensive.
Well, I guess a makeup artist would be somebody you just have for the sets when you do things. A stylist would, what would a stylist do?
Yeah, stylists. A lot of people, every time they go to a red carpet, you want to really make a statement, especially if Getty Images is there. So they hire stylists. They often use the same one too, but just to keep them wearing something fresh and new that they don't have to buy.
Oh, you can return it afterwards. And how does this,
Yeah,
you have used a stylist?
I've never used a stylist before. I think I will in the future, but I've never really been a fashionista unless someone else is dressing me. Like I love going on set and they decide what I wear.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah, I don't put it together well. That's
So
not
what
my
kind of hobbies do you like? What's your fun thing?
cooking.
Cooking.
I'm from Louisiana. Like cooking is
Yeah,
my
it's
DNA.
it's gonna be a little hot then, right?
It can be spicy sometimes. Yeah.
You have the dirty rice. I just had you
Oh,
like
dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, everything.
okay. I say you're a big chef, and you stay with the Louisiana flavor then.
Well, I've actually switched it up. So I've been in LA a little over 9 years. So I switched it up. I was vegan for like 6 months. Of course, if you've never gone vegan, like, are you even in LA? So
Ah,
I've learned to cook a lot of like Louisiana versions of like vegan dishes. So like maybe crawfish etouffee using yams instead of like the crawfish and things like that.
right, right, right. I mean, Louisiana has that nice spice. I've been in Louisiana a long time. You guys have a lot of fun in New Orleans, at least.
Oh yeah.
A lot of fun. Okay, I want to leave on a really a note that you mentioned a little bit, and this is like life. I always try to end with a happy note, and about lemon, and we call it making lemon lemonade. And it's it's really the thing about life. It's that you just don't know when things look really bad what it's going to lead to. You just don't know. I know people who are musicians, like the Beatles. They broke up, and then everyone thought the end of it, and they became Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. They all made it out of it well enough. And sometimes you just think things. This is it. You're just so fed up. Even relationships. You're in a relationship. You're there with someone so long and so strong, and it seems like it's powerful, and then it ends, and you're like, what's going to happen? You're so lost. But sometimes God has a different plan, and maybe that's part of the road we have to go through. And it's not always so smooth. It's a little bumpy, and we just got to think that we don't know what the ending is. So when people out there are having struggling, just realize that lemon is going to be lemonade, God willing, and you'll be seeing a lot better tasting future with your lives. Thank you so much for joining us, Ashley, and
Thank
all the
you so
best.
much.
We want to. Oh, by the way, Ashley, I'm so sorry. Tell us how we can find out more about you.
Oh, you can find out more about me by following me on socials at follow Ashli. So that's at follow ASHLI.
And you're saying all the socials. Is it we're on Facebook? We're talking about which
That's
one?
Facebook and that's Instagram.
Okay, and YouTube.
And TikTok as well, but I'm not really active on TikTok.
And YouTube also.
Not YouTube.
YouTube. Okay, got it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and God bless.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.